This is what you think you sound like negotiating.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything.
And here's what you actually sound like.
What's that smell? Is that a fart? Are you a farter? Now, can I have a pastry, or are you guys gonna eat them all? Because you're gonna get fat.
So one of my favorite books that's helped me a ton on negotiation is called Negotiation Genius. This book is by Deepak Malhotra and Max Howell Bazerman. And in the book, they break down topics like emotional and cognitive biases, how to deal with difficult negotiators, and how to appear strong from positions of weakness. If you're tired of walking away from negotiations feeling defeated and hopeless, you should definitely keep watching. Now, negotiation is super important. In my life, I've negotiated deals many times, and sometimes I've done it really well, and other times I've done it really poorly. Before we ended up negotiating selling Twitch to Google and then later Yahoo and Amazon for $1 billion, we actually tried to sell the company for a mere $20 to $30 million, and we butchered the negotiation. Years later, we ended up back at the negotiating table, and we turned an offer that was initially $150 million into one that ended up at $1 billion. Now, not everyone is negotiating billion-dollar deals, but negotiation applies to everyone. You might be at your first job negotiating your initial offer, your first pay raise, or a promotion to manager. How you conduct your negotiation is going to dictate your outcomes, so pay attention. Here are the mistakes that I used to make while negotiating and why you probably suck at it right now.
How's it going? I'm Justin Kahn from Justin.tv.
All right, number one, an over-reliance on gut instinct. Most of us are not that good at negotiating, as much as we like to think we are. And unfortunately, it's not about the flashiness that you see on movies and TV. Negotiation isn't so much an art as it is a science. Most people think that negotiation starts at the bargaining table, when you sit down and start talking to the other party. But that's not true. It starts much before, with preparation. Nobody wants to do preparation, but trust me, it's important. If you view negotiation as an art that you're gonna cowboy when you get to the table, you'll over-rely on improvisation. And if whoever you're talking to knows what they're about, you're gonna get walked all over. You wanna start with preparation before you go into any meeting. So how do you prepare? That brings me to point number two. Most of us don't consider our alternatives if this deal doesn't go through. Before you get into any negotiation, you want to start by figuring out your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA. Ask yourself this: what will I do if this negotiation does not end in a deal? Simply put, you should be aware of what your alternatives are if you do not reach a deal and what their relative value is. And then identify your best option. That's your BATNA. One example, when we're negotiating selling Twitch to Google, if we didn't reach a deal, what was the alternative? Well, we'd have to continue running the company. And so we could calculate, well, the value of running the company is this. Here's the percentage probability of a positive outcome of us growing the company, and we could kind of calculate how much dollars that was worth and how much risk, what was the relative risk threshold for continuing running the company. That gave us an idea of what our alternative was worth. Once you understand this, it makes it much easier to frame your deal in the spectrum of possible offers and understand where you can concede and where you shouldn't. And it helps you make judgments on where you could concede things and where you can't. You should also determine your reservation value. That's your walkaway price. What's the lowest offer you're willing to accept? Anything below your reservation value is not worth your time. So you know if the other party is insistent on offers that are well below it, you should just walk away. Negotiation's a two-way street. The other party's also thinking about their BATNA and their reservation value. And your job is to get an idea of what that is. Assessing the other party's BATNA could be something like asking yourself the question, what would they do without me? This information helps you figure out how much you can push your asks based on the value that you bring to the table. All right, once you've figured these two things out, your reservation value, their reservation value, your BATNA, their BATNA, this helps you construct a zone of possible agreement. This is the pie that's split between both parties where you're going to find common ground. A ZOPA can only exist when there's some overlap between each party's expectations regarding an agreement. If there's no ZOPA, there's no possible deal. Analyzing the ZOPA is going to help you know whether you're getting a terrible, okay, pretty good, or great deal. Mistake number three: not understanding when or how aggressively to make the first offer. Oftentimes, negotiation books will say, like, you always have to make the first offer. But being the first mover is not always an advantage. Knowing how and when to make a first offer is super important. So what's the advantage of making a first offer? Well, it's you get to anchor the price. What's price anchoring? It's like someone comes in and says, your thing is worth X dollars, and that frames the conversation in, it's somewhere around X, right? Like maybe 150%, maybe 50%, but it's probably not 10 times X. What's the advantage of receiving the first offer? Well, you get more information about the other party. This can help when you're not really clear about what value you're providing to the other party or what is the range of prices that they'll pay. So when should you make the first offer and when should you receive it? Well, if you have enough information about the reservation value, you should make the first offer. And if you don't have enough information, it's best to be patient and let the other party speak first. If you make a first offer without the right amount of information, it can be a disaster because you can either make a much too high first offer and completely turn the other party off because it seems ridiculous to them, or you can make one that's much too low and get a terrible deal relative to what you could have gotten. So an example, when we were selling Twitch, we let the other parties come in and make a first offer because we didn't really understand how valuable is Twitch to these big tech giants. We didn't understand what their reservation value were. We had some ideas of like their botnet was building something themselves, but it might be very difficult for them to replicate Twitch. So we let them make a first offer. In the very first case, it was Google coming in and saying $150 million in consideration and $25 million in retention bonuses for the team. And then we understood, okay, this is like kind of the range, and we let them bid themselves up. When you're making first offers, well, first, don't start where you want to end up. While your ultimate goal is to arrive at an agreement within the ZOPA, the way to get there is actually to make your initial offer outside the zone, one you know that they won't accept. The idea here is that you force the other party to negotiate themselves into the ZOPA. So Google kind of did this actually to us when they first bid for Twitch. They kind of lowballed us with that $150 million offer. That was pretty much on the low end. That was only a slight premium over what we had raised in our last round. So they put that low offer out there and let us negotiate it up. If you make your initial offer inside the ZOPA, that means you're giving up on your ability to claim the value that sits between your offer and the other party's reservation value. You're no longer able to get the best possible deal for yourself. You should also justify your offer. Set the offer at the most aggressive price that you can justify. Justification helps with the social norms aspect. Like if someone throws this super lowball offer out to you randomly, you're going to be like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Is he serious? Is this like bullshit? Am I just trying to get exploited? When the other party adds a justification, then it seems more reasonable. They're saying a fair price for this is $100 and that's all I can afford to pay. I haven't been working that much recently. I've only got $100 in my bank account. The value of this item is $100 for X, Y, and Z reasons. Then you're like, oh, well, they're coming from a place where they're negotiating in good faith. Your instinct isn't to just like slam the door in their face. When you're setting a price, when you're throwing out that first offer, set high but realistic aspirations. If you set an optimistic price target, which is a price you hope to achieve, that's usually correlated with a higher final negotiated price. Targets that are inspired by high aspirations but grounded in reality are the ones that perform the best. Here's how to respond to first offers. If the other party's offered an aggressive anchor price, you should redirect the discussion by not engaging with it, avoid dwelling on the offer, or making an anchored counteroffer. So in the case of the Google example, when Google came in with $150 million, we just said no. We didn't give a justification. We didn't say it's got to be this price or this price. We just said no. And we continued talking with them about the partnership that we'd been talking about and let them decide whether they want to come back to the table with a higher offer, which they probably did. They came around and said, okay, how about $225 million? To which we said no again. All right, this is part one of why you suck at negotiating. So keep an eye out for part two, where we'll cover what to do when you're actually negotiating. If you have something you're negotiating right now, comment in the comments below. And don't forget to bang that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on video notifications, and I'll be your best friend forever. Later.